So good afternoon, good evening, folks. Welcome to the next webinar series of Pi Mumbai. Today we have Nandini Mansinghka as our Investor of the Month. She is the CEO and co-founder of Mumbai Angels, which has been in Mumbai for a long time, but they're now truly global. A lot of you might have not known, but Nandini is a true serial entrepreneur. She did start DG Boosters, and one of the excellent communications that I've ever had with Nandini, which actually opened my eyes, was on the entire value chain of how the filmmaking business is. And she kind of told me who makes the most amount of money, and I was really, really surprised to note that the producer actually makes less than 10% of the entire money. So I've had such lovely conversations with her. She's a wonderful human being. Always puts entrepreneurs first, and which is why today Mumbai Angels is flourishing under her. She just took on the role 2 years ago full time. And what I was really surprised to know is there are 620 members today, and they're doing almost close to 7 million, up to $1 million or 7 crores per deal. And they're also participating in Series A and Series B. So without further ado, welcome Nandini. And folks, the format is going to be very simple. Nandini is going to talk about Mumbai Angels for the first 15-20 minutes, tell you what their shape, form, and avatar is currently. And then I might ask a few questions. But again, as you all know, Nandini wants to keep this highly interactive. So please keep posting your questions on the chat as she's talking. She also doesn't mind looking at some of the questions and answering them then and there if they are in the flow. But post that, I'm happy to welcome you all to come, unmute yourself, ask her questions directly, quiz her. She's a very friendly investor, so you can actually get to know more about the mindset of an investor from her. Having said that, Nandini, truly an honor, and welcome to our Investor of the Month.
Thank you, Naveen. It's always a pleasure to be here on TIE. I've been closely associated with TIE now for almost, I think, 7 to 8 years. And I just admire the amazing work that you guys are doing, for the ecosystem.
Thank you.
So like Naveen mentioned, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, give everybody an overview of what Mumbai Angels does and how do we look at investment. And please feel free to ask me as many questions. And, depending on the time, we'll try and take as many as we can during our journey. So just to start off, just to give you a sense, Mumbai Angels is one of the first networks that were started in the country. And they were started at a time when, maybe angel investing was not even understood properly in the ecosystem. We were just, a network of say 5-6 people who just friends who came together and they said, listen, how do we invest in startups? That's where the journey started, 2006. I was not a part of the network when it started. 2 of my very close friends, Sasha and Prashant, they started it. Cut to today, we are now a global network. Like Naveen mentioned, we are present in about 40 cities and 10 countries across the world. We have about 620 members. We've done about investments in about 182 companies as I speak today, of which 60 of them have already seen exits. So in our business, it is not just so much about investing. And I know a lot of you are founders, so you would want to know a lot more about, how the investments is done at our thing. From our perspective, what we have started looking at startup investing is more on trying to educate the investor to say, how can you actually deploy more and more of your money at the early stage venture? So it's now no longer called an angel investing space or startup space. It is what we look at as an early stage venture. So how we like to look at it is to say every company which has become a Zomato or a Flipkart or an Ola or, if I might say even Reliance, everything was started by 1 or 2 people at some point of time. Our job as a network or our job as a platform is to actually identify the founder and the unicorn and those companies at that stage when they're just 2 people, 3 people, just straight off, from the concept stage, just trying to do the first level of business. And that's when we come in and we say, listen, where is the first growth capital going to come? So that's the stage where Mumbai Angel comes in. We put in money anywhere between 50 lakhs to 2 crores. What will happen is that you will find that we are not the first check. The first check is a pre 50 lakh check that happens, which earlier used to come mostly from friends and family, but now it's a very nice evolution of the ecosystem where there are incubators, accelerators who put money. Then there are also networks and funds who invest at the pre 50 lakh, which we call pre-seed. That's where the money comes in. And then it's when people require that 50 lakhs to anywhere up to $1 million is when our network takes these companies onto our platform. So like I said, sweet spot is anywhere between 50 lakhs to $1 million. Most of our deals are done at a 2 crore mark. So that's where the majority of the fundraise happens. How this works is that the same company is showcased to the entire network of 620. So we don't do selective showcasing. That we are very, very clear that the only way that something which is at this scale that is growing can work is if it's transparent and it's completely process driven. Right? So we showcase the same company to the entire 620, and we do it through several formats. We will do a showcase. So now the showcase is more virtual, but earlier it used to be a mixed hybrid format. Even going ahead, we see a hybrid format only. We don't see ourselves shifting to a completely physical format after the lockdown. And then there will be, individual conversations. There'll be a talk to the promoter. There'll be Q&As. And then we do a lot of, more information, as much information as the individual investor needs to take the call. We will keep pushing that information out. And then individual investors take their own call. So of the 620 that members see, about anywhere between, say, 5 to 25, 30 people will sign up for any deal. So that's the ratio. So at any given point, whenever you're looking at any numbers, it's always important to look at the ratio rather than the specific number. So it tells you how the business is running. So like in our case, the ratio of the number of people who will subscribe to something versus what is shown is anywhere between, say, 1 to 5%. Yeah? A similar ratio is applied to the number of companies which apply for funding to us and what are showcased onto our platform. So on an average, in a month, we see about 1,000 startups looking for money, and we showcase about 100. Sorry, in a month, we would showcase only about 12 to 15. In a year, we would showcase 100. So in a year, I would see anywhere between 8 to 10,000 companies, and we would show about 100 to 120 companies. That's the ratio of companies that actually pass the muster to be showcased to investors. And then from there, I would say about, 50% of them get funded. So about 50 of them get funded. So for all of you who are looking for money, that is a very important number to know. That a similar number is what most funds, except networks, family offices, any investor is looking at in terms of the sheer volume of people who are looking for money. Having said that, it doesn't mean that your idea is if 5 people say no to you, you're not going to get funded. What you need to know is this whole sales principle. That if you will apply to 100 people, and any of you who are out there in the market for sales, not investing, you would know that if you will talk to 100 people, about 10 maybe will respond, and about 5 will be interested, and maybe 1 or 2 will convert. So that's the ratio that you need to work at whenever you are looking at fundraising also. So that's the piece that is there. We have, like I mentioned, we look at the other big thing that we've recently done is that we've actually introduced an algorithm in our entire investment process, which actually filters the company at the first level before we start looking at it to be showcased onto our platform. Now that is one of our core IPs that we started developing, and we are one of the first in the country, if not the globe, to do something like this, which means that we have started putting our collective knowledge in that algorithm to say what has worked in the past and what we see will potentially work in the future as successful companies. So that is the first level where, the shortlisting happens, and then our team looks at it. So in terms of our team today, we have about 40 people, which is divided between people who look at the investments, people who manage the portfolio once this is done, and who are also into what is called investor relations, because we see ourselves increasingly as a wealth management platform. Our job is to ensure that investors understand the risk associated and manage their portfolios for them as and when the investments happen. Going forward, we do see ourselves, being out there. So if today our investments are, let's say, about 170, 80 companies, I see that portfolio growing to about 500 very soon. I also see our ability to invest in, if this year we are targeting to invest in about 100 companies, I want to be able to invest in about 400 to 500 companies every year over the next 3-4 years. That's the kind of pace that we want to start building, because our understanding is that's the only way that you can actually keep pace with the super fast growing Indian ecosystem. And we wanting to do this absolutely on the edge of it. I think, is there anything else that you would want me to cover, Naveen, before we start taking questions?
So, Nandini, also when I see the participants, I can actually see a good 30-40% coming from our venture investing classes. So
Nice.
these are folks from the investing side.
Super.
A lot of them are there. So if you want to maybe talk to them, because they could be potentially your investors sometime in the future.
So that's a very good point, Naveen. Now, so to just change the track a little bit on, what does it at the early stage venture thing? So one of the first things that we will have to do is to take a portfolio approach. What happens is that a lot of times when angel investors are coming into this for the first time, there is what I call selection bias. You will see the first 10 companies and you will fall in love with them, because there are such fabulous new ideas and so many new things are happening. I would say take a pause. You will have to basically now go backwards and start looking at saying, what is the total investable portfolio size that I have? Okay, so a portfolio corpus. So I'm just going with the numbers. So assuming you come back and that, listen, my corpus is about 5 crores. I will say allocate about 5 to 10% max of that into early stage venture. So that's the first math that you do. Then all of us would have heard that whole math on saying 10 companies, 3 will not do well, 3 will do really well, 3 will cruise along. That math works. That's the good news. The bad news is that the math starts working only at a minimum of about 50 companies. Anything lower than that, you're going to be exposing yourself to the risk of the asset class, because you're going to be concentrated in a few companies. So as an investor, you will have to have the discipline to be able to say, here's the money. I'm going to now start allocating it to a number of companies every year. So you'll have to do 2 or 3. Have the mental stamina to be able to invest in the portfolio size that you have decided upfront. Secondly, don't go overboard on any one company, however much you like it. Remember, you are investing. You're not trying to run the company. If you try and run the company, it's not angel investing. It's something completely different, right? So if you're going, then you have to bet on the founder and the lead investor and the business model. So you have to start saying, okay, this is the amount that I'm going to allocate. And third is you have to be very, very methodical and regular in your investing. So once you do these 3 things, what you will see is that, say, for an example, in a certain year, your portfolio will swell to about 10 companies. Next year, it will swell to another 10. Third year, it will swell to the next 10. And then by the third year, the first 10 will start giving you the exits. So that's the minimum runway that you have, 3 years. And then also know that only about 25 to 30% of your portfolio will keep churning. And once done, okay, now here is something that once done well and in a portfolio approach in a very, very disciplined manner, this asset class has the potential to give you anywhere between minimum 25 to 35% returns. But only when you're doing this in a very, very organized way. What I would stay away from is unicorn. I know that, we have a lot of this news coming out in the market and every day, and it's a very heartening news to see that so many unicorns are now coming into thing. What you need to know is, this is an irreversible trend. It has to happen. So there is more and more of these startups are going to become bigger and bigger in size. But for you as the investor who's going to come in the first round, you cannot decide which one of these are going to become unicorns. That is, like, say, for example, if you ask me today, when I've been in the industry now, I would say about 12 years. I started in 2010. I'm much less confident today. I'm saying which will become a unicorn than I was 5 years back. 5 years back, I was like super confident. You give me 10 companies and like, yeah, I know I have the eye, and these 3 are going to be outperformers. I've been wrong all the time. Yeah. So what you will have to do is you will have to, like I said, disciplined approach. Follow. The other way to do this is to invest along with others, and then let somebody else who has the time and the expertise to be able to lead that investment, and you follow. Some of you might be, the other way to look at it is that some of you might be wanting to take this up as a career. So there are career super angels, or there are career micro VCs. Give yourself the time to evolve in that. You can't today decide I'm going to become a super angel, because I have the investable money. It doesn't work like that. There is the life cycle. And I would think that life cycle is anywhere between 2 to 3 years minimum. 2 to 3 years and a 10 portfolio company before you start saying, yes, I want to do this. Then there is the scope for you to start looking at it as a full-time role, absolutely. To say, I'll become a micro VC, I'll become a syndicate lead. Because that's the other thing that we're seeing as an evolution in the Indian market, which I think is a fabulous development.
Thanks, Nandini. Yeah. So let me start asking you a few questions, and then we'll address both the founders and the investors in this group. Now, Nandini, it's been 20 months since the pandemic, but you're telling me that the velocity of capital has changed in these 20 months.
Yeah.
So what has changed even for you folks? How are you now looking at companies? How are you looking at founders? I think the filters are much larger and stronger.
Yeah.
So what has changed?
So very interesting you asked this, Naveen. 2020 was our best year ever. So, when we started, when the lockdown happened in March of 2020, I was really scared. I said, oh my God, this is tanking. Yeah. We were pleasantly surprised. The number of people who started becoming investors, the number of companies that we started investing in, just the deal size, just the velocity change. We did, like I said, the highest number of deals ever in the thing. We did our first $1 million deal during that time. So in that peak of the year, we invested in about 35, 36 companies. Okay. I was worried that, okay, maybe this, this action is only at our level. What will happen to our portfolio? Will there be a freeze at the fund level? Will the Series A exits happen or not happen? I saw an equal number of exits. So we saw 35, 36 investments and 35, 36 exits just in 1 year.
And this is all from your Mumbai Angels?
Yes, our own portfolio. I'm talking of our own portfolio.
Oh, wow.
So our portfolio, we saw 35 new entrants and 35 exits stroke next rounds in 1 year. And this, so when I was sitting with, the team on March 2021, I was like, wow, this was a fabulous year. And then you realize that the last 4 months have been, I think, we've almost done half the business already in 4 months than we did in the whole of last year. So, yeah, so I'm actually looking at maybe doing about 80 deals by the end of this year, 80 to 100 deals, deploying that much capital along with it. So the velocity has increased. I think it is a function of a couple of things. See, I love using this whole, chessboard example where, if in the beginning of, so if you decided to say that for every move, I'm going to double my stake. So, 1 to 2, 2 to 4. If you start doing that, you'll find that the growth is really slow in the first half of the chessboard. It's like, what the hell, what's happening? It's when you start moving closer to the second half that the growth starts becoming interesting and then later exponential. I think that's where we have actually started reaching in the Indian ecosystem. So this is not a bubble. This is, okay, our individual valuations bubble. Yes, will there be companies which will today be unicorns, tomorrow you will not see them? Will people lose money? Of course, all those things will happen. But the overall trend is us. I think we have started becoming a matured early stage venture ecosystem now, where there is maturity in the investors, there is maturity in the founders, and just generally, there are more people trying to do this in a better, more structured way. I think that is what has changed the velocity.
So can you elaborate on that maturity in the founders space? I mean, what are you seeing founders? How many times do you actually meet a founder before you sign a check for them?
So when you say there are two steps to it. Now, one is the internal team and the second is the investors. I think everything combined together at least 10 times.
10 times, okay.
At least. I'm talking us and the investors meet, etc. The overall time taken is about 3 months from the time somebody will apply to us and then, the money is in their bank. What has happened is, that earlier there was this, exuberance about young founders, Ivy League, IIT, IIM, so I used to see that if you are, I'm talking say about 6-7 years back, if you were IIT, IIM, etc., there used to be a queue of people trying to sign checks for you. I see that has changed now. What we have started seeing are a range of age. So age now it's just another factor. It's not a thing. Investors have started asking questions on saying, do you really understand the business that you're trying to do? Or is it just some idea that you've got? Do you come from that space? We've also seen, very strangely, we started seeing a lot of second, third generation entrepreneurs, which are trying to do breakaway businesses from their main parent business. So, they're like, listen, I don't want to do the main parent business. I want to do some derivative of it. Investors actually like that because they see that, oh, this guy is not just talking, they've seen the mother business and they know how to build this. They will maybe have access to capital when needed. And they also understand the challenges of this. So that's one kind of founder that we've started seeing a lot of traction. Second kind of founder is when the founding team is very strong. So, they have complementary skill sets. That's actually a very big one, to say if 2 or 3 people are there, together, do they know how to run the business? And one of the other piece that we're seeing is that a lot of guys have started doing business from, say, they were a part of the first few hires of another startup. So like, Ola, OLX, Pepperfry. So you've been, the CMO, CTO, etc., over there. And now you're saying, okay, I want to do this business or I want to do a derivative business of that. There is a lot of traction. So that's the second piece. The third is that, now luckily there is a lot of literature available online. How to build the business, how to build the business quickly to scale. What is the investor looking for? So today, actually, any founder who starts approaching an investor without having done his or her homework, has no excuse.
True.
5 years back, there wasn't enough literature. Now there is enough. So a lot of people have started building their businesses by learning from collective knowledge. So there is that whole maturity in the founders and a similar maturity in the investors.
Yeah, I've seen investors getting rejected by founders today.
Yeah. It should be.
Yeah.
In fact, it's very interesting you're saying that. And it will be very strange coming from me, but I think a founder should not raise money till they actually need it. Number one, it is not exciting to go out and raise money. Just let's not take money just because it's easily available, because you need to know that anybody who cuts the check is going to sit there on the board, is going to ask you questions, is going to try and steer it in a certain way. If you're sure you are willing and able to deal with it, you should do it. If not, don't do it. And you should be very, very clear on whether the money that's coming on board is just money or smart money. Because we have seen companies go down because the investor doesn't understand what's going on. Absolutely.
And I think on the other side, the maturity of the investors has also gone up right now.
Dramatically. See, what happens is, because I would say it's a mixed bag, because there are always newer investors who are coming in, and we want that. So like I keep saying that today, if you look at all the math, maybe some about 10,000 angel investors are there. That number needs to go minimum to 100,000 for us to be able to even call ourselves, a developed ecosystem. What that would mean is that there would always be a flow of newer people who have to go through their own cycle of 3-4 years to understand. But what you see now, which was not there, is that there are people who've been in that cycle for 10 years.
Yes.
And they have seen the good exits, they've seen the bad exits, they've made money, they've lost money. So now there is a lot of awareness and maturity, which I think is a very good sign in the ecosystem.
And educating the risk, I think, is the key thing over here.
Which is the role that we play,
Yes.
continuously. Which is like what I just mentioned. If somebody actually comes to us and says, "Listen, I'm a new investor and I want to cut a 1 crore check on this one company," we'll actually go and say, "Please don't." Please, don't do it. Do cut 10 lakhs in 5 companies. That's a better way to go about it.
Got it. So I'm getting a lot of questions with respect to what sectors have you been focusing, at least in the last 2 years, when the velocity has hit you?
Yeah, super. So see, we are a sector agnostic platform. So our job is to keep showing companies in a wide range of sectors, because like I mentioned, if there is one company and only say 10 people are going to subscribe to out of 620, you don't know which 10 are going to subscribe to what, right? So we keep showing. Having said that, we are seeing a lot of interest in, I'm going to talk about 5-6 sectors that we see a lot of signals. One, of course, is life sciences. So when I say life sciences, I'm talking healthcare, which is like zero tech to health tech, the full range we are seeing. Of course, deep tech is a given. However, we don't.
It's a common denominator nowadays,
Yeah. Though I think in India, thankfully, or in a good way, not everybody is chasing tech deals. So what happens is that if you're a fund, you will keep chasing tech deals because you're looking for that 100x growth. A platform like ours, we don't chase only 100x. We are saying, we are, even if something is like a 10x growth. So of course, you're not looking for lifestyle businesses of 2-3x. That I think you're not looking for lifestyle businesses. You're looking for multipliers, but not 100x necessarily. So there is a lot of deep tech which we invest in. One interesting thing that we started seeing is consumer. So there is a lot of interest in, from individual investors, family offices, in the India consumer story. So, food is like a big one that we do. So we've done chip and dip, we've done drinks, we've, all kinds, health snacks, all kinds. Then personal care, creams for the Indian skin, women hygiene, we see a lot of stuff coming in. So there is a lot of, now we've also seeing a lot of interest on, eco-friendly packaging, eco-friendly. So zero tech, but a lot of, some sectors that we see a lot of, which I see as, the next frontiers thing. One is defense tech. So we see deals over there, and we see a lot of interest over there also. One sector that I'm like completely passionate about myself is space tech. So and we are seeing a lot of interest over there, and we actually see that at some level, space tech and defense tech is also correlating at some point. And there are deals happening over there, and we've started seeing increasing interest in that. Like over a period of time, if you would ask that, would you want to put up a vertical? I would love to put up a space tech vertical. I think that's a lot of potential. That's the final frontier, actually. So personally, I'm like super excited about it. And then, of course, electric vehicles, those are happening. EdTech, I think a lot is happening there, but now I think it's overheated. Too much has happened, and purely because of the pandemic, bahut kuch ho gaya. I think that might see some correction, but yeah, edtech is also another big piece. So these are, I mean, I'm mentioning the top end. Then of course we do. So like if you look at our pie chart, saying how many industries, I think as of today, we are distributed about say 25 different sectors, and I see it only growing. As you start doing sub-segmenting on it.
I mean, for a person coming from JP Morgan, where is fintech?
Fintech, yeah, we love it. We love it. It's somehow in our on our platform, I've not seen too many fintech deals close. Maybe it's a function of a fintech.
Money?
Yeah, you need more money. For fintech to grow, you can't say like I need the first check of 2 crores. What we've started seeing are a lot of these robo investing platforms. They have come. We've invested in a couple of them also. A lot of these products that are getting done. But if you ask me and saying, is there like a huge flow of fintech? I've not seen deals closing, and I think it's just a function of the quantum of money that one needs, even at the base level for it to. But yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I think we've got a bunch of questions. So let me try asking. But folks, if you want to come and ask Nandini directly, please raise your hands. My only request when you raise your hands is please rename yourself so that we know whom we are asking. I'm not going to be pointing to anybody whose name is just an iPhone or some Galaxy, something like that. So that, we just are a little protective of who's the person.
Yeah. And I'll also try and keep my answers brief. Otherwise we won't be able to take questions.
Okay, I think a lot of them have been answered actually. Okay, do you look at hardware or capital intensive startups like energy generation space? You said yes. R&D. If at all there's a startup which has got a capex.
It's tough, See, what happens is now that capex heavy is actually, of course, the lines are blurring, but it's not, it doesn't fit in the startup definition. And especially at our level, if we're trying to fund somebody $500,000 to $1 million, and if it's capex heavy, where will the money go? It's quickly going to get.
Okay. Nikhil, you can come on the screen or off screen and ask your question directly. Sorry, it's Nikki. Sorry. Nikki, can you unmute yourself? Saloni, can you help Nikki unmute herself? Kanchan, if you're ready, go ahead. We'll come back to Nikki.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kanchan.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Nikki. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Good evening, everybody. I wanted to know that I am into food space and I have a startup which is 1 year old into that space. I wanted to know that when does one approach an investor? I mean, it's always we are in need of money, but what is that line? When it is that, yes, this is the time when I should go and I can, though I know that my business has potential, it is working, it is generating money, but yes, when it is that time to go in.
Nikki, just tell us in one line what your food business is so that it gives a context to Nandini.
Yeah. So I am into food space where I deal in short shelf life food products of all brands in India.
Okay. Are you a reseller?
Yes, I am a reseller.
Okay.
Kanchan, it's this Kanchan, right? Or Nikki? Nikki is asking. Okay. So, Nikki, I think the question that you've asked is a function of which kind of investor should you go to. So, the level at which you spoke of, it will be tougher for you to get investment on a platform like ours. But if you go, what you'll have to do is, I think you need to start going earlier. So you have to look at like a pre-50 lakh kind of an investor. And this could be like, incubators, accelerators, smaller networks who do pre-50 lakh check. Having said that, I think you need to bring in not just somebody who brings in money, but also somebody who's from the space. Otherwise, you will continuously keep feeling pressure from the investor to show you numbers. Yeah. Without them actually giving you the right, support.
Okay.
So bring in the skill sets that you need, the access, a lot of things that you need at your level is also access.
Yeah.
To the various. So be very careful on who you bring in. So there's no right answer on when you should look for money. There are only two things over there. One is, do you need the money? First question. Secondly, who should you approach?
Okay.
I think Marico would be a good ideal spot to start off for you, Nikki.
Marico.
Yeah, Marico Foundation or their investment arm, because they love companies like yours.
Okay.
Happy to get you connected. Ping us on the sidelines. We'll do that.
Yeah.
Kanchan, go ahead next.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Thanks, Naveen. Hi, Nandini. So I'm the founder of Loan Genie, which is the vision of Loan Genie's financial inclusion. We are for profit with purpose, and we give small personal unsecured loans to salaried people in Bangalore as of now, and we donate 5% of our processing fees to charity. So my question, I had multiple questions, one related to the other. Was starting with what is a typical ideal founder for a Mumbai angel once the investments are done. I was also wondering about the equity dilution, how much of an equity dilution normally happens, between what ranges, and do you expect to take some board seats in some of the cases after the funding is done? Who is the person the founder or the promoters are dealing with after the funding is done? So also in terms of deal flow management, what is the kind of help we can expect from Mumbai Angels? So those were some of the questions, Nandini.
So let me just go one by one. If I miss something, you tell me. Right. So you're saying what's the kind of founder that we prefer? So I mentioned some of the things, right? I think what you need to have is if it's a single founder, the founder needs to be able to convince the investors that they'll be able to steer the company through the entire journey. Or it should ideally be, 2 to 3 founders. That we always prefer a team rather than this thing with complementary skills. So and especially in the kind of business that you're coming from, it will be important that at least one of you understands what you're trying to do. It can't just be an idea. So that's number one. The second is you spoke about the dilution. That's a very tough one to answer because, I've seen the dilution move depending a lot on the sector that you're from. More importantly, the traction that you have. It's a function of traction. Like I think at our stage, the valuation is actually a function of, are you trying to convince the investor first or the customer first? So more, higher up you're on that journey of having convinced the customer first, you will have to convince the investor lesser and lesser on the value that you create. That's the second. The third is, but to give you a number, I think you are looking at anywhere between, a 5% to a 25-30% dilution, depending on where you are in your life cycle. Yes, we do take a board seat, so that's baked into the thing. Most of the time, the board seat is taken by one of our members who is ideally from that space or has invested a large chunk of the round that's been done. In terms of who will you deal, in terms of do we help with the deal closure, that's our job. So what we do is that look at us as a platform that does everything except for deciding on behalf of the investor. So we are the people that you're dealing with. We will negotiate with you. We will close the deal. We will handle the entire thing. Even after the deal closure happens, till the time that you are on our portfolio, you will be dealing with us primarily and the board rep who is there. Did I miss anything, Kanchan?
Kanchan, were all your questions answered? Sorry,
yeah. So I got the unmute. So got the voice back. I think And then, in terms of the kind of fees, is there any fees which is charged by Mumbai Angels?
Yes, we take 5%, of which 2% is in equity and 3 is in upfront cash.
Okay, and so 5% of the invested amount.
Yes. So if it's a 1 crore raise, 5 lakhs.
Right. Sure. Thank you, Nandini.
Thank you.
Okay, Pia, go next.
Hi, Nandini.
Hi, Pia.
So I'm actually the founder of a travel club for women, and I've been in the business already for about 13 years. So what I wanted to know from you is that, obviously at this stage, I can't get like seed funding or, get incubated. So what are the funding options for entrepreneurs who are at this stage of business for about 13 years? And the other thing is that so far I've been in the service space, like offering travel services for women, but I'm actually now looking to get into the infrastructure space and actually build women-friendly infrastructure. So what do you think is the potential of this kind of a thing to get funding? And also, does it make sense for me to create a separate entity which will be based on infrastructure? Does that help in terms of like fundraising?
So I think one is, it doesn't matter how long you've been in the business.
Mhm.
It's a function of how much money you need. So say, assuming you say that, no, I need 2 crores only, anywhere with, or $1 million. I'm just saying. There's no problem in applying to any network, because we don't look at the how long you've been in the business, but we'll see the future potential of what you're trying to build.
Okay.
So that's not a problem. Even incubation, I don't think is a problem, since you're trying to pivot. So you've been doing a certain thing and you're actually trying to pivot into something else. So it's actually, you need the money only for the pivot. You don't need money for the service business,
Right.
right?
Yes.
So for any investor that you will go to, or an incubator or an accelerator that you go to, will see what's the potential of the new business, and they'll actually look at you as a entrepreneur who's trying to do a newer business,
Right.
and come in. That's the second
Mhm.
piece. In terms of infrastructure, look, if you're trying to go and build houses, if you're trying to build if you're trying to say, I'm going to start owning the places that you're doing,
Mhm.
I think that's a very slow growth model, which you will find tougher to get investment from.
Mhm.
Sector agnostic network like ours, where you will find the right investor. I'm not saying you will not find the right investor, but you will find the right investor in this form, somebody who's in the travel space. So if you go to somebody who's like, say running a chain of hotels or chain of whatever, and they are saying, listen, I want to do this very specifically at the level where, PI is trying to build this, they might come in as a family office to put the money. So you become like a bolt-on investment. But for networks like ours, if you come back and you say, listen, I want to build this and I need 10 crores, you will find lesser number of people interested in this. Is there a hybrid model possible of what, say, Oyo has done or a Saffron Stays has done? That's a completely different model and we've seen a lot of interest in. So you can actually, if like I said, if that's where you're planning to, there is interest in that model. But not, if you're building the infrastructure from scratch, it's better to go to somebody who is from the industry to take the money.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Shreya, go next.
How are you? So basically, Nandini, I had a few questions. So we are a tech startup. We started in 2020 itself, and towards the end of 2019, and we're trying to build up a platform which is for mental health and wellness. But so basically, I've done my clinical psychology myself. I'm a psychologist, but we come across a lot of questions these days wherein people are asking us that, although you guys are from the background, like both the founders are from the same mental health background, but the questions what we are facing is, do you have a CTO? So is it mandatory that, when we would go to investors or when we pitch them for a tech company to have a CTO when both the founders are from the domain of this mental health itself?
Do you see yourself as a psychology company that needs tech as a background, or do you see yourself as a tech company that offers psychology as a product?
Well, we are a mental health company where we see psychologists who needs our platform as of now. Because the thing is that we are just trying to automate everything, the online counseling sessions and everything. We have already 750 experts with us, mental health practitioners already listed with us pan India.
So see, Shreya, what you're trying to build is a tech company, no?
Yes.
Then you will need either you need a CTO, or you at least one of the other ways to do this is to actually talk to tech companies that maybe the same company that's trying to build what you're offering, or some other company, and offer them equity in your company. You will need tech as one of the whoever is building the tech to not decouple from you once the investment happens. So the question that the investor is asking you is to say ki agar kal tech mein kuch gadbad ho gaya, so who's the person who's going to come and fix it? If both of you are not from the background, then the investor starts feeling jittery. So you will have to find, I'm not just saying a CTO, it doesn't need to be a CTO. What you can do is that, you can find, there are companies nowadays who try and, almost offer CTO as a service to various startups. And they will do that for equity because you'll not be able to afford them full time. So you can't even afford a CTO. So obviously the best thing would be to get a CTO co-founder. It's not that easy. I completely understand. So you then look for a company that will do this for, as a service for you guys. Give them equity, not just the money.
Yeah. And the second thing which we are facing is an issue. The second question is that we are a team of women founders, and investors are often asking us these questions like, what if your lifestyle changes, personal commitments, and how do we tackle these questions when this comes as a block to most of us, like when we face this?
Shreya, I think we should just ignore these. It's good you asked me. I just want to give this perspective here on this platform. I think gender has got nothing to do with building companies. Nothing. Yeah, there's only hard work, and there is only this whole sweat and blood that each one of us will need to put in building our companies. So when you are getting this question, I can tell you that the male founders are getting completely different set of questions. So you will just have to brush over it and just go about it. I don't think we need to see entrepreneurship and building companies from the gender lens at all. So I don't think you should worry about it. Just take it in your stride and keep building, because I think what you're facing is, like I mentioned at the beginning of the session, it's a sales process. You'll talk to 100 people, 90 will reject you for all different kind of reasons. It doesn't matter. And the 10 who will start engaging with you will engage with you because they like your model and they like who you guys are as a founder.
And
I don't, yeah.
Is there scope in mental, like, of course there is scope in my product, but investors, so does their interest lie in this domain? Like, I just wanted to know that what is from an investor's point of view. A lot of people are there into the healthcare sector, as you said earlier also, but mental health is what our USP would be, that we are, both the founders are from the mental health background, and we do know that what is right, what is wrong, because a lot of people are just playing with it, like in this domain. So how is there any scope in this with organizations which you could help us, where we could pitch in our ideas? And
yeah, of course, we see a lot of very good companies that are coming up. And see, like I mentioned, if you as a founder are very sure of what you are building, okay, you will find the investor to invest in you. I think where the challenge is that a lot of times you are not very clear in your own head on what you're building, and more importantly, you're not being able to explain to the investor in the 10-minute time that they have on what you're trying to do. The problem there is if you are very clear, there is money, and especially in the mental health space, we see a lot of companies coming, and there's a lot of interest.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And how can I get connected to you via LinkedIn or something? Maybe later.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm there on LinkedIn.
Oh.
Please check me.
We'll also provide you with the connections.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Naveen, sir. Yeah, bye.
I just wanted to, Naveen, just want to, 30-second on this one. I think it is absolutely critical that everybody who's a founder on this group, knows what their 5-minute pitch is. So I don't like to use the term elevator pitch, because I think that has got like overused and abused, and there's too much of American jargon around it. But there needs to be a way where you can absolutely clearly explain to somebody what you do in a couple of lines, 5 minutes, 10-minute max. What you need to know is that nobody has the patience to hear your story end to end, and you will be like totally involved, and you would be in love with what you do. The other guy is just trying to say that, okay, do I like this or not like this? And that frame of mind, that attention span, unfortunately in this world, is not more than a couple of minutes.
So Nandini, the thing what we have seen as TiE Mumbai over the last 3 years is the amount of specialists and coaches for this.
Yeah.
That have sprung up. Every LinkedIn profile today will say, I can help you get your elevator pitch right.
Yeah.
And today somebody is telling me that the average amount that a founder spends on getting his 6 to 7 or 10 slides ready is about 2 to 3 lakhs.
Wow.
They're outsourcing that. They're getting it done. There are, our ad agencies and our creative agencies, they're getting into full-time pitch deck, production kind of companies, So again, it goes back to the maturity of the founders and the velocity at which they're coming. So I think for all of you out there, understand what the game today means. No more those ugly looking pitch decks will ever catch attention of anybody.
Yeah.
You need to be razor sharp when you talk to somebody and articulate your value proposition. And first thing you need to always do is tell what is the problem that you're trying to solve.
Yeah.
That's the conversation, and bring in the element of curiosity on the other side. And that's how they're going to get hooked on. Anyway, that's a different session altogether. For folks who want to know what needs to be in a pitch, there's a YouTube session that we're just about to upload. I think it must have happened yesterday. Go to our TiE Mumbai one. It's done by VC Karthik, and it's a very good one. Take a look.
Yeah, he's very good at that. So absolutely, and see, I think you need to know what you're building. You can't flounder on what you are building. And that needs to be a 2-sentence thing.
Correct. Just one ballpark figure, Shreya and others. What is going around today in the market is that if you are getting revenues of $10 million and above, that's when you think of hiring a CTO who's full-time. And that's what VCs are telling startups, not until then.
Yeah.
Aditi, ask your question.
Yeah, so hi, there are 2 questions. So first is, since e-commerce burns a lot of cash, so are investors readily looking to invest in e-commerce companies nowadays? And my second question is, so what should be the allocation of funds after we raise funds? So like what percentage of that should go for customer acquisition, building product, etc.?
So your question to e-commerce, you have to have a very different product line to be able to raise money on e-commerce. So if you're doing a Me Too, it'll be very tough. So that's you need to be very sure that what you're building has got scalability potential and it's going to do well. That's number one. Second is, see, on an average, where we see the when the money is being raised, there are, I think you need to be able to say that, listen, a sizable chunk of this will go into technology, sizable chunk of this will go into upgrading the team, the team size and the skill set, and a sizable thing will go into marketing. So I would almost say up to 80% of the money should be between these three, and the rest is in operations.
Thank you.
Sorry?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Surendra, go next.
Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yes, now you are.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Naveen and Thai Mumbai, for this opportunity. Nandini, I have been associated with a couple of incubators in the role of mentors, and I mentor about 5 to 7 startups in different sectors. But now I'm getting more interested to invest myself. And from that point of view, I was actually keen to know if you can give us some idea about what are the few key characteristics of startups which get showcased and funded, especially on platforms like Mumbai Angels Network. This will help me to understand what is it that a startup should look at so that they can improve from that way and then aspire for raising the funds. And the second question, slightly different, but maybe correlated in a way, that when one starts investing journey, and I have been a fan of Mumbai Angels Network since I have seen multiple platforms, etc. Because the way in which you have actually taken upon the role of educating investors yourself through various posts, etc., that is very heartening. So what is the minimum amount that one can actually look at to start with so that we do this journey in a right way without actually exposing too much of a risk?
Yes. So let me take the first question on what's the kind of startups that get, so I can talk about my platform, I think it will differ from different things. I think we see companies that are, now looking for the growth money. So we would not look at just idea stage, or we would not look at companies that, have just done the first few sales. We want a certain amount, like, and where we're saying, okay, growth capital, anywhere between 50 lakhs to $1 million, which should ideally last you between a year to 2 years. So, what happens sometimes is that people are there and they say, listen, we are looking for 50 lakhs, but it'll last us 6 months. I don't think that works. So you need to have that runway to be able to do it. And we have looked at companies which are pre-revenue, but that will be in very specific sectors, like if somebody is trying to build a molecule, which is more research based or a tech based this thing. But otherwise, anything that depends on customer acquisition, we need to see traction on it. That's number one.
Right.
The second, of course, like I mentioned, the team is very important for us to be able to say, will they be able to build this together? Okay. If you are mentoring companies, for us, who is the mentor and who has invested in the company before is also very important. So that is a huge factor. So for example, if you can start building your own equity in the market as somebody who has taken companies from start to getting them funded, that for us is a very interesting and heartening thing to say that, listen. And the other way to do this, when you're saying investing journey, I would think one of the better ways for you to enter in this thing is to actually start saying that whenever your mentored companies are going to get the next round of funding, you're going to put money over there. So then, for us to say, oh, he has been associated with this company, now he's also willing to put money in this round, is a huge tick on saying that you believe in the scalability of the model.
Right.
So here, and I'm not so sure, what you do otherwise, Surendra, but one of the things that we have started seeing as a network coming up as the ecosystem matures is, people angel investors who have started doing this as a full-time thing. So you don't need to become a VC. You don't need to go out there and raise money anymore on your own to be able to become a VC. Today, you can do it on platforms like ours. So you can come in and you can, start leading deals. You can become syndicate deals, and you can do deals on our platform where people will put money in the platform on the companies, not because of the founder, but because of Surendra. I think that's the other piece that you should evaluate. If this space excites you enough and you see yourself, actively participating in this for the next 10 years.
Right.
So I think that's the other piece. As of now, our mostly you will have, like I mentioned, you will have to keep aside a certain
I can get in touch with you or your team.
Kapil, go next.
Hello, ma'am. Hello, Nandini, ma'am. This is Kapil. I'm the co-founder for a waste management startup, and we are digitizing the entire waste management supply chain, right from municipal corporations to the recyclers and the manufacturers all across the supply chain, which is basically creating a material traceability kind of a supply chain, so that the waste material which we just throw away doesn't end up into a landfill and rather get recycled altogether, but an end-to-end tracing and traceability of the same. But the first thing is that we face is our first customer is a municipal corporation through which we are acquiring the customers, right? And that's the bigger problem, because people like angel investors or say VC funds or anybody don't generally like government as right. It's a negative connotation altogether. So that is one of the bottlenecks we are facing. And also another thing is people are not much, at least in India, civic tech. The word civic tech, it's not yet too mainstream to go out and create that digital ecosystem for smart cities. So what's your take on that, and how do you look at those things? Yeah.
We haven't seen any civic tech company get funded on our platform as yet. And I think, like you mentioned, I think it's too soon. So my sense is a couple of years down the line, civic tech is going to become as hot a sector as defense tech or space tech. I think the good news is you are before time. Yeah. The bad news, the bad news there is, sir, please go ahead.
Yeah. So another thing is that you already told that defense tech is something, it's booming, right? Again, with defense tech comes government along, right? Government is the major buyer. So how does defense tech is booming and how waste tech company is not booming, considering both the people are selling it to the government, or the first customer at least is the government?
I think it's a function of who in the government you're dealing with. So in defense tech, you're dealing with the central government, more organized. There is a stated objective of saying that, listen, we want to do make in India, that whole, so that, and that,
I got it.
There is that whole credibility of a central government procurement system versus so look, I don't know your business enough, so I don't know how to, specific this thing. But yes, the government, the fact that you'll have to deal with local municipal corporations is going to be a challenge. It's a bottleneck for the investors.
Yeah.
You might need to find a way to tweak the business model.
We have found one. Yeah.
Yeah. So you will have to make sure that your procurement of whatever you're trying to do is not the municipal corporation, but is there a via media? Because look,
Yes.
you are actually trying to do the government's job. Let's be very clear,
Yep.
right? So if you're trying to do the government job and then you will say, no, my first interaction is with the government, it's a self-defeating proposition. So you will have to find a way to go higher and do the procurement directly, and then you will crack
So,
it. Because I've seen a lot of companies in that.
So yes, we have actually tweaked that around and tweaked that business model altogether. But still, how do we? So it's more of a B2G2C company altogether, wherein government is just giving us the accessibility, and the entire procurement and other things are taken care by another partner. But yeah, again, it's just SaaS, our software product, which is getting funded right now through other channel partners, but not the hardware product, which is going to be integrated along with it. So we are still figuring out another way to tweak, to fund this hardware system through CSR partnerships across. So
Yeah.
that is one of the things. But yeah, I mean, we were looking for mentorships with people across. So, I mean, how do people, I mean, I know people back at Mumbai Angels are really busy with investing, but how do you look at mentorships? I mean, mentoring.
So we don't do mentorship separately.
Okay.
So I think that's a completely different ball game, you know.
Right.
For us, we see mentorship or coaching coming with money. So
Got
for
it.
us, that's a part of, you say that, listen, and that's my personal belief on it, and I might be completely wrong, and there'll be other people who have very different views on it. But my sense is that anybody who's mentoring you or anybody who is saying, they need to have some skin in the game. You know,
Skin in the game,
So
correct.
kya hota hai, it becomes something that you do when you have free time.
Charity. It's not
Yeah,
charity.
it can't be. You know, if you are building a business where you are putting your blood and sweat in it, for somebody else, it can't be a part-time or job.
Obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. So and I think that only comes when the money is there aligned with it.
So in case, if we have figured out the tweaks around dealing with the government altogether, then would it be a fundable startup altogether?
It is, of course it is. Of course.
Okay. How do we explain that particular thing, that this altogether, everything is happening, but government is just giving the accessibility and other things are getting tweaked? How do we explain this thing in those 5 minutes?
You will have to get your pitch sharper. You will have to know how to, you do it 20, 30, 40 times.
Yep.
So, you know, you will have to do this, like I mentioned, first get your pitch right, then pitch it to 20, 30 people, not the real investors. You know,
Right.
there has to be this practice pitching.
Right.
You know, and go and pitch it to your grandmother who doesn't understand anything.
Right.
And when you convinced her is when you know, acha, I've got something right.
I've got something. Also, another thing is, I mean, how do we as founders look at it is by considering for grants. So we have got 40 lakhs of grants through Government of India's different schemes. So we are playing that particular game.
Yeah. That also helps. So like if you get grants, so that you know that, listen, the government is not going to become a roadblock, and you have the money, then the investors start looking at it. But you'll have to crack this government interface piece before you're looking for serious money.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Okay.
That was a very detailed moment.
Okay, next, Palabika, go ahead.
Hi, am I audible?
Yeah,
Yes.
now-
Hi, Nandini. Thank you, Naveen. Two things. First, I loved one of the Nandini's comment when you said that you shouldn't raise funds till the time you don't need it, because I have been hearing it from a lot of my people who help me, consulting me. Second, I had a question is, I am in a very niche sector of women's food, which is related to breastfeeding and prenatal. But all our products are made under doctors, Ayurvedic expert and clinical dietitians. So we wanted to know how will be the growth, do you see the growth in these companies? And there has been people approaching me to invest, but I don't know, I'm little reluctant to give away the stakes and then do, how should it be done?
So look, what you are building, Palavika, is a B2C, right? So you have to market what you're doing. You will have to. So I think if you have the internal resources to build this, you should build it. But don't stop your growth at a certain small stake just because there is no money. Because what you are doing needs to be out there in the market, and you will need a lot of marketing dollars for what. See, anything which is a consumer brand
Correct. Because
needs marketing dollars, because otherwise it can't go. You'll remain one small time entity.
absolutely, because we have been there 3.5 years now.
So you need the money now. For sure, you need the money. And the only thing I would say is that raise money from somebody who understands distribution, how to help you grow into this. Because see, beyond what I've seen is now that beyond a point, all consumer products are about marketing and distribution.
Absolutely.
More distribution than marketing, you know?
Yes.
So you will have to go there. Don't sit there and say that just because my product is fabulous, I will grow. There are no outliers on consumer products. It is only the grunt work on distribution, marketing. And because you have something which is a very niche product, it actually has the potential to become an outlier. You know, so like I keep looking at, say, raw pressery, for example. Right? Everybody said that, oh, you can't do fresh juices, it doesn't work. And then suddenly, A, because they got the money, and B, because they got their marketing and distribution right, it became a mainstream category. Okay. So if you want to build a mainstream category in the consumer thing, you will need the money. So I think in your case, I would not refuse the money. Just make sure that the money is smart money.
Absolutely. The same thing when I was thinking like Nestle, lactogen or anything like a child product. We take it up because it's available. Availability is a big factor. So that was the thing that was going on. Thank you for clearing it out.
That's the only factor, Palavika. It's not one factor. It's the only availability in a very, very crowded consumer market is the only factor.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you, Naveen.
Thank you. Sushil, go next.
Yeah. Hi, Naveen. Hi, Nandini.
Hi, Sushil.
I'm trying to make it very brief. We are working on a idea in a share mobility in a EV ecosystem. First, I'd like to say that we are into automobile business for last almost 60 years now. Third generation is in this business. And but I think if we launch the idea at a scale, our MVP will come little early, because a lot of, as you said, a lot of thing happening in the EV ecosystem, and we don't want to start with maybe 20, 30 vehicles or something like that. Yeah. If we could launch at a scale, but for that we need funds at an early stage. So would you suggest to invest in such startups if the team is good, experience in this, and the idea is good, like, okay, scalable, highly scalable? Please.
It's a chicken and egg, Sushil. It's a very tough question to answer, because I think you're entering the market late. Because what has happened is that there are already a lot of share mobility players, the real large ones, and there are lots of others, smaller ones, that have also got funded. So I completely agree to your point on saying that you will need to do this at scale. But the challenge always when a startup is trying to raise its first money at scale is, that same thing that I mentioned some time back, that you then have to convince the investor before you have convinced the customer. And then there will always be a back and forth on saying, see, also what you're trying to do is a lot about execution. It's basically your ability to put that distribution out, being able to make sure that however many number of vehicles you have on the street are being utilized. So it's an execution game, right? So what you're asking the investor to put the money on is your team's ability to execute better than somebody else who comes with a similar proposition.
Okay.
It's a tough one to crack. I would recommend, you'll need to, experiment with this a little more. But you might want to pick up a specific local area. So, like one of the ways to do this is, one is to say scale, and the second is density. So you might be able to pick up, like, say, a small tier 2, tier 3 metro. Okay. And usko carpet bomb kar dijiye. That will take you lesser amount than if tomorrow you said ki main Mumbai ko carpet bomb karna cha raha hu. So like that there is this company now, which I think it's on our portfolio only, which has done this for Goa. So bicycle share.
Beeline.
Beeline, right? So you go out there and you say, main Goa ko carpet bomb karna.
Okay.
You pick up some smaller city. I don't know, somewhere near Maharashtra, and go and carpet bomb there. And then you say, listen, we have become the leader in this shared mobility here. And then try and raise the money for it. Or, so because then it will become a chicken and egg otherwise for you.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Sushi. Vijay, go next. Vijay, can you unmute yourself?
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you now, Vijay.
Yeah, hello everybody. My name is Vijay. I'm calling, from Mumbai. Basically, we are a company into 3 verticals. One is electronics, second is cybersecurity, and third is the healthcare. So healthcare vertical, we started off recently, since the pandemic we started. The first product we built, it was, certified by DRDO. And during the second wave, we built this medical oxygen concentrator, for which we got the TOT from ISRO. Okay. So what has happened is last year, there is something, all the businesses were impacted. We diversified a bit, and, it became partially successful because we increased our turnover. We had a turnover of approximately 1 crore 10 lakhs in 2020. In 2021, we made it approximately 2 crores of turnover. We have already did that. We started off in 2016. So now what we are actually looking in is for, since all the product has been indigenously developed in India, we are looking for the funding. We really don't know how to go for the funding because this is something of bigger business, and it is also helpful for the mankind because the third wave is about to hit. There are countries it's a global business. Even ISRO is ready to transfer the technology for ventilators. Till the date, whatever money we had, we were using in the earlier verticals, and we still have a very good set of customers. We have Tata as one of our customers. We have Oryx Finlay, it's a Japanese company. So that is our customers. Decathlon. In government sector, we have Indian Army, Navy as our customers. Sequent Group.
Your question faster, please.
Okay. So our question is we really have never raised the funds. So we really don't know how to pitch it, and which is the right door, we knock it because it is, we have very less amount of a time. If we make it now, we make it, or else, wo chal raha hai waisi kaani chalti rahegi, seedhi baat.
So you need to first bring in, Vijay, somebody to help you fine tune your business plan and the pitch deck.
Okay.
So get in an expert even before funding. Get somebody, see, you can connect with Ty and see what's the right price that, the right consultant. Spend that month and a half. And it's not a 15-day thing, You sit down and do the strategizing, completely detailed of what you want to build up, kahan tak grow kar sakte hain. You should be very clear on the path.
Yeah.
And get an external person so that, you'll be able to brainstorm better and build the business model and the deck.
Okay.
Now, once you've done that is when you then start saying, okay, who do I need to reach out to? And then you start reaching out to different people. Because I think, Abhi, you're getting, because it's the same team thinking of the same questions again and again, you're not being able to make a breakthrough. Get an external help on this.
Because we have already, I will just take one more minute. We have already started dispatching the products and everything, but the demand is constantly increasing. We have to be very honest. we have some good set of work orders in hand. Like there is one company who had raised an order of more than 200 CR with us, but their payment terms are pretty pathetic. Like they are talking about the LC and this kind of terms, and it won't be possible for us. So we actually need some funding. But if you guys can guide us, like whom to speak, for making this, we have this the pitch deck and everything, but till the date we never required because we were self-backed. So we never required all the money we poured in. So, but right now, I think for expanding and to take it to a higher level, we will need it. So if you can guide us, like whom to approach. Even I had dropped a mail to Mumbai Angel Network also. I had contacted Nandini ma'am on this one. You especially on the LinkedIn. So you had given me an email, but I don't know whether my pitch deck was not good or probably something.
No, so like see, even when I'm listening to you,
Yeah.
Structured in plan. So you'll need a very, very sharp pitch for not just for Mumbai Angels, but for any investor. For that, like I mentioned, bring in, and I think TIE will be the right platform to help you identify who's the right consultant to help you with this. But you need to build your business plan and your deck. Uske baad, see, an investor will never spend time in trying to hone your or fine tune your business. An investor is somebody who's going to say yes or no. You need somebody to help you build that plan properly. First, that's step one.
Okay. Sure. Will do.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So Nandini, how much time do you have? I know we've crossed the...
I think if we can close this in about 5 minutes, Naveen, that would be wonderful.
Sure. So what I would suggest is I have Rahul, Keshav, Samir, and Faz. Let's try doing this. Can all the four of you ask your questions, and then Nandini, if you can...
Yeah, I think that's easier.
No way to do it right now because we will close with these four. So Rahul, go first. Then Keshav, you ask your question, and then Samir, of course, and then Faiz.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity, Naveen. I would just I'll keep it very brief. So I'm into men's grooming space, D2C space. We started in 2019 and we are a content first company. So we were creating content and we got around 2 million views and 5,000 pre-orders. We were supposed to launch in March 2020, but then pandemic came and I suffered a loss of like around 10 lakh rupees. So we are launching the first product next month. And after fulfilling all the pre-orders, I would be only able to, generate revenue jisse bas chal jaye. So I'm looking to raise around 25 to 30 lakh rupees. So I wanted to know who will fund me, like will the angels fund me or I need to approach pre-seed incubators, and am I even fundable at this moment because we are yet to launch? So when shall I ask for funding, after I fulfill the pre-orders or before? So that was my question. Thank you.
So I'll quickly take this. You should fulfill the pre-orders and then approach the incubators and accelerators.
Okay, thanks. Keshav?
Hi, good evening, Nandini ma'am. So I'll keep it brief, like short and sweet. So we are in the AR hardware segment. We are creating AR glasses for productivity, working, and creativity segment. And we design and engineer the hardware in-house. We outsource the manufacturing. We design and develop the software in-house, and we have a working prototype. I have a team of 6 people working on different segments of this. I have a two-parter question. The first being AR hardware is a very competitive space, wherein Jio, Apple, Google, Facebook are also going to enter. So even if we devise a competitive advantage for the existing solutions, how do we prepare ourselves and what do we do against the big tech companies? That's A. And B, we are trying to raise about 5 CR because the technology is its very infant stages. So we want to develop it out first before we release it to the consumer. So we are thinking of raising about 5 CR. Now from this 5 CR, what quantum can we expect to raise from Mumbai Angels, considering its AR, VR hardware? That's about it.
So the second question is easier to answer. It's a function of how interesting the proposition is. So can the entire amount be raised on Mumbai Angels? Absolutely. But whether it will get raised or not is a function of, where are you on it? How convincing are you to the investors, etc.
Okay.
It's also a function of, what you're trying to do is very, very niche. So if you can actually get somebody who understands the space to even commit, say, 25, 30 lakhs before you come to a platform, it suddenly becomes your job much easier rather than trying to convince 600 investors who might not understand your space. That's
Okay.
the second question. The first one is a very tough one to crack, Keshav. You
Okay.
have to convince yourself first that you have the competitive advantage when the biggies come in. Not us, not the customer. You get convinced that you have something that will let you hold fort even once the bigger guys are there. Otherwise,
Okay.
it's a tough uphill battle. No?
Like, will investors, like, just from, like, if I can follow up, will investors be likely to invest if the competitive advantage seems that strong to a certain
Yeah,
extent?
of course. So, like I said, you have to convince yourself first, and then that has to translate into your pitch. No? That has
Okay,
to
right. Sorry.
translate into your pitch, and investors will. So we've seen investors putting in money in a lot of companies where they're large players. So the one of the pointers I can give you is to say that a lot of times what investors see value in is where you're trying to create something where the biggies will not be interested till it reaches a certain scale, and then you
Okay.
become an acquisition target.
Okay,
So, you
got
will
it.
say that, listen, I'm doing this small sliver of this, innovation, which unless it becomes like, say, a $50 million business or something, Apple will not be interested in it.
Okay, got it.
But if you're building something to Apple, kal se bol raha hai, listen, I'm going to build, then you are an Apple task.
Yeah.
So if you can show that, listen, I'll build this and then Apple will acquire me, we'll be super happy.
Okay, got it. And does me, or like we being a student, affect any of this if the proposition and stuff is better or good? I'm in my final year of degree at this point.
Yeah, I mean, we will expect you to be doing this full time for sure.
Okay.
Like, I mean, that goes without saying that the investor will not invest in any team that's not full time.
Okay. Got
Thanks,
it.
Keshav.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Samir, ask your question. Go ahead, Samir.
Hi, Nandini. This is Samir Patil, and I represent Troutel. We are digitizing and empowering the retail and MSME offline travel agents with a full stack SaaS, cloud-based, multi-product B2B travel platform to increase their operational efficiencies, revenues, and scales, and also helping them onboard their products like the long tail products which are not there in online space right now, which includes day trips and unique local experiences. Now, my question to you is, one is, do you guys as a angel network co-invest if a startup is raising more than $1 million seed round? Do you guys co-invest with other institutional investors or other investors? And second, what's the kind of equity stake that you guys take for about $1 million round on an average?
Yeah. So first answer, yes, of course we co-invest. I think that's like, in fact, actually we prefer that, if there are several investors, several platforms, we co-invest. Co-investment is how things are done today. So, how much equity is a very tough one to answer, Samir. I'll need to see what your revenue is. But like I mentioned in the beginning of the conversation, we see nowadays we are looking at deals of range of anywhere between 5 to 25% of the cap table, depending on where you are, which industry you are from, what's your revenue. But yeah, 5 to 25% is the range. Naveen, should we close this?
I've got two more people. Can we just ask their question? If you have 2 more minutes. Sorry. I mean, Nandini, frankly, this gets over in 15 minutes, the Q&A sessions in any other session, but today has been a blockbuster, so.
I'm very glad to be here. Just that, I need to step out for something. But yeah, absolutely. I would love to do more.
If Faiz, please make your question short and to point it to Nandini.
Yes, Nandini, this is Faiz here. Thank you for staying back late. I know you have to run. My question is more of a philosophical one. Right now, are we seeing some kind of a maturity in terms of pitch submission where without even opening the pitch, we kind of stereotype, okay, this is in the same structure, ye nahi chalega. Yet we just open the last page of the slide and we see, hey, there is an angel investor and that stamp authority is there. Now we can kind of back this regardless of the category of investment there is. So are we moving in that direction, or is it too early for us?
No, so like I mentioned, it's a very good question, Faiz. I can talk about us. We've already put an algorithm in place. So it's not so cut and dry on one or two, but what we've done is that we said, okay, here are 100 parameters of what we have seen over the last 15 years of investing, which could probably define the probability of something being a success or a failure. And that algorithm we've already started using internally to be able to identify companies that we want to have the second level conversation with.
Okay, thanks.
And that I think is an AI ML journey that I think investing is taking, and we've already started that discussion.
Thanks, Faiz. Yeah, Simi, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, good evening, Nandini. Thank you so much for taking out this time. Actually, we started our startup in 2019, and recently we just cleared the first Shark Tank round. We appeared for that. We are looking to raise around 2 CR. I would just like to know if you can help us out in making a very strong pitch, because maybe the story, it is a LGBT community related e-commerce platform. They got convinced because the story was very powerful, but figures may be, maybe very weak. Otherwise, the sale has not very much happened, but the growth is almost 400% in second year, like in this April. Can you people help us out in making some strong pitch, like to raise this fund also? And in case you can also help us in funding, it's LGBTQ community platform where the entrepreneurs of this community, we market their products, because this is a very community which is not given proper chance. They don't have many resources to showcase their products, and we are building this community basically. Yeah. So can you people help us?
Yeah, so I think the right platform to do this is TIE. So you'll have to ask Naveen the same thing that we spoke to another entrepreneur some time back, to saying what you guys need to do is bring somebody in and spend a month, and it's not a 15-day exercise. Spend a month with that person, build the entire business model out, and the 5-6 slider on the business model. So you need to spend that time and the money to put this pitch together. So we, as a network, are investors first. So like I mentioned, we come in with the money first, and then other things follow, rather than the other way. Having said that, if you're looking to raise the 2 crore, and if there is interest in in your pitch from other investors, we would be very happy to look at your product and the pitch. So anytime, please check with Naveen and apply to us once you have the deck ready, because I think there will be interest, since it's a niche product line that
yeah.
But what you have to build, and I think even at the same conversation I had with the other lady who was talking about the mental health piece, you will have to get your growth strategy right, and you need to convince the investor that it's not a small small growth. If the growth is not right, investors will not bite. So you will have to put that number in place.
Yeah, that is all the number game that we are looking for. That is it. Thank you so much.
Please do write to us. Last one, yeah, Vipin, you're the final one for the day.
Sorry, Naveen and Nandini, extremely sorry for coming at the last, and I joined a little bit late, so I'll be quick. This is my fresh journey. I'm not a startup guy. I've been 15 years. I was in US, came back. I'm starting it now. I just wanted to know, Nandini, your thought on to the property rental market. I have a unique proposition which I'm working on. I'm really on right now a bootstrap with phase 1, where I'm trying to capture my market and see how things work. So product fitment right now. So that's why I'm not asking all other questions. I just wanted to understand, what's your thought on the property rental market? I know it's very crowded, but we have very unique proposition, and the streamline, and the thought that I bring up is like, I want to streamline and transform the rental market. That's the theme that we have. And if we're able to build our product, the way we look currently property rental market, we want to change that. how do people are doing it. So that's a proposition, but I wanted to know your 2 cents on how you think this entire market all about.
So see, I think PropTech is in its version in the Indian economy. So version 1 were the Magic Bricks, and who tried to do this, and I think they came in, and after some time they quickly just said, listen, it's easier to just sell newer property and go with the builders, etc. We see a lot of innovation that's coming up, and also in the pipeline on PropTech. Leftover inventory, a lot of I see a lot of stuff happening on what do you call that, the reverse bidding of a certain, so the same property getting reverse bid on by 5 guys, auction kind of a thing happening. So there is a lot of stuff that's happening. A lot of customization will you will have to I think your idea, you need to bring on an incubator and accelerator very quickly. Don't build to a certain point on your own, because I think you will need a lot of market intelligence on what else is already happening, because it's not new, it's a crowded market, and a lot of stuff is already happening.
Sorry, I was waiting to get unmute. Yeah. So I'm not in that property sell and business market. So we are totally out of that bucket, because you have 99, you have no broker, there are a lot of people there, right? So that's why I said once I'm able to build my product, then I will change the mindset of how you rent a particular property. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And I already have a product live, which is on the beta version. So we are doing this kind of an experiment. We are talking to brokers, we're talking to people to see what the feedback coming up, and then we'll go from there. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. If you reach if you make breakthrough, and if you're being able to get the first few paying customers on board, I think you should look for funding there.
Yeah, and I don't have a paying model till next 1 or 2 years, because the thoughts are slightly different, but I'll come back on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Thanks, Vikram.
Thank you.
So thanks, Nandini. That was great. We've actually crossed for more than 40 minutes. This is supposed to be a 1-hour session, but you know what? This has been one of the best sessions that we've had. And I think thanks to your patience, that you heard each and every founder out, and that is the need of the hour. Gratitude from our end for that. And Nandini, I promise that we will come back to you for more.
I would love to be here.
Yeah, I think next one, looking at the energy, we will try and do it physical, Nandini. If we can get into a classroom and also have Zoom for folks who can join from other cities, that will be wonderful, because a lot of the questions were, I think, personal and innate to their startups.
Yeah.
So I think that will be wonderful. So thank you, folks. Please do write into me. I've been posting my email. It's naveen.raju@timemumbai.org. See, we do a lot of mentoring. We do a lot of hand-holding. We also get you folks who can help you with your pitch decks, hear you guys out. All of you are members of TIE. So just ask. So many times, you are asking the wrong people, I think. So investors that don't have time to sit and shape you guys, we do.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the key message I think we should give out on this platform.
So do write to us. Happy to help. And thanks again, Nandini.
Thank you so much.
Lovely.
It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye, folks.